All right, so welcome to the deep dive. You know how this works. We take your questions and source material and we dive deep.
That's right.
And today, we're taking a look at something that it popped up on the Ask Men Advice subreddit, and it really caught my eye.
Yeah.
Basically, a guy's wondering why he's suddenly getting more attention from women now that he's dating someone.
Interesting.
And it's kind of like, is this a thing or is it just a coincidence?
Right.
It's just a fascinating question.
It is, and it's something that a lot of people kind of ponder,
Yeah.
so it's not just a one-off anecdote. I mean, this question sparked a ton of responses
A ton.
and opinions on the subreddit.
Yeah, so let's set the scene right.
Okay.
This guy, the original poster went on some Valentine's Day dates with a girl he was friends with.
Okay.
And things seemed to be going well.
All right.
But then he starts noticing these other women acting differently around him, right? Women who weren't interested before are now like suddenly being a lot more friendly and even flirty.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
So a top comment on the thread introduced the concept of mate choice copying.
Mate choice copying.
Mate choice copying.
Yeah, which is a documented phenomenon
Okay.
in the animal world, including humans.
So what is that exactly?
So in essence, mate choice copying is when a female, she's more likely to be attracted to a male if she sees other females showing interest in him.
Ah.
It's almost like this social cue that signals that this male, he might be a desirable partner.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, like you will walk by a restaurant and there's a huge line and you're like, oh, that place must be good.
That's a good analogy.
Hmm.
It's a shortcut
Yeah.
to evaluate potential mates.
Right.
And you can imagine, like, back in our evolutionary past,
Right.
information was limited.
Yeah.
Observing who others chose as mates could
Yeah.
have been a valuable survival strategy. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I wonder if there's like a prehistoric version of Yelp, back then.
Right. Exactly.
Instead of reviews, they're looking at, who's coupled up.
Who's coupled up. Yeah. And it ties into a concept that's known as social proof,
Okay.
which plays a big role in our decision-making processes.
Uh-huh.
We tend to look to others for guidance, especially when we're uncertain.
Okay, so is that what this is? It's like seeing a man with a woman, that's social proof that he's desirable.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
It suggests that he's been pre-vetted.
Okay.
So other women, they might feel more comfortable approaching him.
Oh, interesting. So it's almost like he's got like a testimonial from someone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she likes him, so maybe I should too.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, is this something that's like equally true for men?
It's worth noting that this phenomenon, it seems to work a little bit differently for men.
Okay.
Generally, men tend to find a woman less attractive if she has a lot of male attention.
Why is that? It seems counterintuitive.
Well, there are a few potential evolutionary explanations for this.
Okay.
For men, seeing a woman with a lot of male attention could signal that there's increased competition.
Oh, okay.
Or even a risk of infidelity,
Oh, I see.
which could jeopardize his chances of successfully passing on his genes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the evolutionary pressures are different for men and women in a lot of these situations.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating how our evolutionary past can still influence our behaviors today.
Totally. Okay, so we've got this mate choice, copying as a possible explanation.
Right.
For this sudden surge of attention.
Yeah.
But I noticed that some people in that Reddit thread were kind of pointing to something else.
Okay.
And they were arguing that men simply act differently when they're in a relationship.
Yes.
And maybe they come across as more confident, less desperate, maybe, which is appealing to some women.
Absolutely. And there was a lot of anecdotal evidence from both men and women in the thread that kind of supported this idea.
Oh, interesting.
Many women said that they're drawn to men who seem content and secure in their relationship.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, if someone is like, happy and fulfilled in their relationship, they probably just kind of radiate a certain confidence.
Exactly.
And that can be attractive.
Exactly. And that confidence boost, it isn't necessarily because he's, won over another woman.
Right.
It could also stem from feeling happy and secure in the relationship itself.
Yeah, like that inner happiness kind of just shines through.
Right.
Yeah, and makes them more appealing. Okay, so now I did notice while a lot of people seem to agree with these explanations, there were some dissenting opinions.
Right.
In the thread, and some people were a little bit more cynical.
Yeah.
Suggesting that that this increased attention might be driven by, female competition.
Right.
Or even like a desire to, to steal a man from another woman.
Right. And it's important to acknowledge these differing viewpoints,
Yeah.
even if they're not necessarily, backed by scientific research.
Well, I mean, it's Reddit, right? I mean, ultimately, these are just people's personal opinions.
Exactly. But that's part of what makes these conversations so interesting. Like,
Yeah.
there's never just one answer when it comes to human behavior.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we love to explore here on The Deep Drive. And if you're enjoying the episode so far, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel Shauna Plage, and share with your friends. Yeah, we love having you here with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, speaking of different perspectives, this whole thing reminded me of something. The wedding ring effect. Have you heard of that?
Of course.
Yeah.
The idea that married men often report receiving more attention from women.
Yeah, exactly. And a few of the commenters were kind of drawing a parallel there to our guy, our original poster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there a connection?
There could be some overlap in the underlying psychology there.
Okay.
A wedding ring, it might symbolize commitment and stability,
Okay.
which some women might find attractive.
So is it kind of like the same thing? Like both having a new girlfriend and a wedding ring, they're both kind of signaling to other women that this guy's worth checking out.
It's an interesting thought, and it adds another layer to this puzzle we're exploring.
It really does. And it's a good spot to take a break.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in just a second
Sounds good.
to continue our deep dive into this topic. And if you want to hear the rest, make sure you're subscribed to Shauna Plage on YouTube and our podcast, Voices of the Soul.
We'll see you soon. So welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were talking about, this whole mate choice copying thing and how it might be playing into the situation with this Reddit poster.
Yeah, and it occurred to me we've kind of been focusing mostly on the female perspective here.
Right.
But what about the guy? Like how is he supposed to handle all this new attention?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it kind of boils down to his individual goals and circumstances.
Well, I mean I got to imagine it's pretty flattering to have, all these women suddenly showing interest.
Of course, validation can be a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It can be a nice little boost for your self-esteem.
Maybe even make him feel more confident in his current relationship.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. On the other hand, though, this situation could lead to temptation.
Right.
If he's not careful,
Sure.
especially if the relationship is, fairly new or if it's a little bit rocky.
Yeah. So what's the best way to handle this from his perspective?
Well, the key is open and honest communication with his partner.
Okay.
If he's feeling confused or maybe a bit uncomfortable,
Yeah.
he should just talk about it. Clear communication is so vital for building trust and understanding.
Always the answer, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of any healthy relationship. Additionally, he needs to be clear with, the other women who are showing interest. If he's not looking for anything beyond, his current relationship, then he needs to be upfront about that.
Boundaries.
Absolutely. It's important in all aspects of life, not just romantic relationships.
Sure.
And, this whole conversation about mate choice copying, it really highlights how complex human attraction is.
Yeah.
There's so many factors influencing our choices, some we're aware of and others that are happening on like a subconscious level.
Right, yeah.
And it's constantly evolving.
It really is. And speaking of things happening on a subconscious level, I was kind of looking back at the thread and there was that whole debate about whether this make choice copying thing is conscious or unconscious, right?
Right.
Like some people were like, no, it's totally intentional, and others were like, no, I think it's more just like a gut feeling.
That's an excellent point. And the truth is there's evidence to support both sides.
Okay.
Research suggests that mate choice copying can occur both consciously and unconsciously.
Okay.
Sometimes we might be fully aware that we're being influenced by the choices of others, and other times it happens, beneath our awareness.
Oh, that's interesting. Like sometimes we purposely follow trends, but other times we just gravitate towards what everyone else is doing without even realizing it.
That's a great way to put it. It's like an invisible force that's shaping our preferences.
Yeah. And that makes me think about another thing that kept popping up in the thread was this whole idea of confidence.
Yes.
Right? Like a lot of people were saying that a guy in a relationship, just seems more confident, less desperate for attention, which which is appealing.
That's a common observation, and there's definitely something to it.
Yeah.
You know, when someone feels secure and content in their relationship, they kind of radiate a certain level of confidence that others find attractive.
It's like they're not trying too hard.
Yeah.
Like they're comfortable in their own skin, and that comes across as genuine and kind of magnetic.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that this applies to both men and women. Feeling confident and comfortable with yourself is universally attractive.
Yeah, totally. Looking back at that Reddit thread as a whole, I kind of noticed this underlying tension between how men and women view dating.
Yeah.
Right? There were comments about women being, hypergamy, always wanting to trade up,
Yeah.
and then some women were expressing frustration with men only being focused on looks.
I noticed that too, and it's important to approach those sorts of generalizations with caution.
Right.
They tend to reinforce stereotypes and oversimplify what is a very complex aspect of human interaction.
Yeah, it's crucial to remember that we're all individuals with unique preferences and motivations.
Absolutely.
You can't just lump people into categories based on gender.
You can't.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of the deep dive.
Right.
Right? We embrace the complexity of human behavior, challenging assumptions, and encouraging critical thinking. And we love that you come along with us on this journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're all about exploring different perspectives and having these nuanced conversations.
Exactly.
And we love hearing what you think, too. So if you're enjoying this deep dive into the world of attraction, don't forget to like this video on the Shauna Pillage YouTube channel, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And be sure to check out our podcast, Voices of the Soul, for more fascinating explorations of human behavior. So welcome back to the deep dive. I hope you had a chance to kind of, ponder all this stuff about mate choice copying and the complexities of attraction. It really makes you think.
It does. It's a topic that touches upon so many different aspects of human behavior. And one thing that's been on my mind is just how much our evolutionary past might still be influencing our choices today, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
Like we're all walking around with these like ancient instincts
Right.
that are still like driving our behavior in these subtle ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us back to that original question that sparked this whole conversation.
Right.
Why is this guy suddenly getting more attention from women now that he's in a relationship?
Yeah, I mean we explored a lot of possible explanations.
We did.
Right. We talked about mate choice copying and social proof, the role of confidence, even the wedding ring effect.
Yeah.
But like, is there anything this guy can actually do? Or is this just, kind of something that just happens?
Well, I think it's important to remember that human behavior is complex.
Right.
And there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
It really depends on his individual circumstances and what he's comfortable with.
So like, what are some things that he might consider?
Well, if he's feeling overwhelmed, or unsure about how to handle this attention,
Yeah.
it might be helpful to just, talk to his partner about it.
Okay.
Open communication, that can help them both understand each other's perspectives.
Right.
And make sure they're on the same page.
Communication is key, right? In any relationship, but
Yeah.
especially in something like this.
Absolutely. And if he's not interested in pursuing anything with these other women who are showing interest,
wow.
he can always just politely but firmly let them know that he's in a committed relationship.
Boundaries.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about respecting yourself and your relationship. And ultimately, I think the key takeaway from all of this is just that human attraction is a fascinating and ever-evolving puzzle.
It really is.
There are so many factors at play, both conscious and unconscious.
Yeah, it's like this whole hidden world of like social cues
Right.
and signals that we're sending and receiving, whether we even realize it or not.
Precisely. And exploring those hidden dynamics is what makes these deep dives so intriguing.
It really is. It really is. Well, we covered so much ground today, from ancient instincts to modern dating dilemmas. So, I mean, what are your final thoughts? I mean, is mate choice copying a real thing, or is it just a coincidence?
Yeah.
How much do you think our evolutionary past really shapes the choices that we're making today?
Those are great questions, and I think they're ones that each listener needs to ponder for themselves.
Right,
There's no easy answer, and that's part of what makes this topic so fascinating.
It really is. It's all about, exploring different perspectives and challenging our assumptions and deepening our understanding of human behavior. And we want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into make choice copying and the psychology of attraction, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Shauna Palage on YouTube for more fascinating explorations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and don't forget to check out our podcast, Voices of the Soul, where we dive deep into all sorts of intriguing topics. So until next time, keep those brains buzzing and keep those conversations flowing.
See you next time.